when people can see some visual stuff in the early weeks, it kind of really gets them motivated, gets the ball rolling a little faster. The I's get crossed or I's get dotted, T's get crossed a little bit faster, that kind of stuff. People are like really in prep when Tren enters the chat, right? And it's not like we're going to leave it in there for longer than 4 weeks. It's literally 4 weeks, and it's a very low dose. It's almost not much to write home about. We're talking 20 to 40 milligrams.
These are the listeners right now. They're like, more Tren.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Barry, myself, Scott McNally, and of course, we are brought to you by you, the people at Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support. We do have some Patreon questions today, and everybody from Patreon, of course, you guys all get priority. Skip, Andrew, and I, we've been coaching full-time for a long time, especially Skip. He's been doing this for longer than all of us, and we're here to basically freely share our education, our experience with you so that you guys can get the most out of this freaking sport called bodybuilding that we love. We're also brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. And I think that covers us, guys. Oh, also too, like, share, subscribe, comment, and ring the bell. If you're enjoying our stuff, then please do hit the like button. And if you're new here, we'd love to have you along for all the shows. We have several shows that come out each week. Andrew, we got a question today. I guess he doesn't want to hear what we have to say. He just asked Andrew. He's like, I want to hear from Andrew. So I guess we're just going to skip. We don't have anything to do, man. He says, all right. Well, there's a couple of them. Let's see. So the one where I was looking for here, though, says, I'd love for Andrew to weigh in on something that I've been wondering. I've heard him mention kickstarting a prep with low-dose Tren, but I'm curious, could someone run test with NPP instead of test Primo or EQ to drive strength early on? Also, would it be viable to add a low dose of Tren to test and NPP stack for the first 8 weeks of prep, or would that be doing too much damage to your lipid profile? Big fan of the show and all the content that you guys put out.
There's a lot in there, but first off, adding any PED to a cycle is going to have undoubtedly some benefits on your strength and your muscle mass accrual and all that kind of stuff. But let me just kind of quickly say, I like to use Tren for like the first 4 weeks of a contest cycle, and it's not like everyone that's what they're doing, but I like to use it initially.
Everybody gets Tren.
Yeah, Tren for you, Tren for everybody.
Yeah, no. Everybody gets Tren.
It's more so to get some increased insulin sensitivity, especially if you're coming off of a heavy off season, and maybe you didn't have a pre-prep cleanup, which is very popular now, to kind of prep before you prep to make sure that you're going to be in shape in time. But let's say I see this being probably the most beneficial with the old school way of dieting back in the day, when the guys would do like shorter preps, and they would just get as big as they could in the off season, and then they just race the diet off. Like, it would be common for guys to lose 40 pounds in 12 weeks, which today I don't think a lot of us do that anymore. Would you guys agree?
Totally, 100%, man.
This question was for you. I'm just playing against you.
Okay. Well, anyway, throwing Tren in at the beginning of a cycle, think of it, not that it's going to cause you to burn fat, but it's kind of like a cleanup phase in a sense for me, where we're going to lose some hopefully some fat quickly, get rid of all the bloat. I don't want anything that's going to aromatize heavily, and we're going to increase nitrogen retention very quickly, and we're going to improve your insulin sensitivity quickly. So it's kind of like get the ball rolling. And it's also, when people can see some visual stuff in the early weeks, it kind of really gets them motivated, gets the ball rolling a little faster. The I's get crossed or I's get dotted, T's get crossed a little bit faster, that kind of stuff. People are like really in prep when Tren enters the chat, right? And it's not like we're going to leave it in there for longer than 4 weeks. It's literally 4 weeks, and it's a very low dose. It's almost not much to write home about. We're talking 20 to 40 milligrams.
These are the listeners right now. They're like, more Tren.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that Ender guy.
But get to the second part of the question. Could you use NPP early on in a prep? Absolutely. You can use any drug you want at any phase of the prep. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to say I don't do that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think people think when they come to coaches that they have their one protocol and they just give it out to everybody, which is the dumbest thing in the world, because you could just go on to one of the forums or one of the Reddit links and probably find some of the cycles that any one of us had written and think it applies to you. I think people sometimes maybe get annoyed with me when I ask about compounds, because it's like, I really want to know, what do you have experience with, what has worked for you, what hasn't worked for you in terms of side effects, whether it's mental, physical, whatever. And I like to take it from there. So especially if you're a guy who's done, let's say you've done 3 or 4 shows at this point, like, you should have a pretty good repertoire of drugs or knowledge in terms of drugs that work for you and drugs that don't. Because how many times you guys, it's not common, but I would say 1 out of every 5 guys now is like, I don't want to use Tren this prep. And it's like, cool, I make a big note, no Tren. I might write it 4 or 5 times just so I don't mess up and throw it in at some point.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not going to say it's completely collaborative, but it's like, as a client, you come to us with a body of your own experience, and we'd be stupid to just say, no, it's my way or the highway. So I'll leave it at that and let you guys take over.
What do you got, Skip?
Yeah. I put my cribbage game away. I'm a big cribbage fan. So I thought, I'll just play a game of cribbage. Okay, so, I really don't have much to add other than there are some trainers, and people might not know this. There are some trainers that really don't put a lot of focus or attention on the gear, and their clients may be considered more advanced in the sense that those trainers accept that the people who are coming to them as competitors already have a very good understanding of the compounds that they use and how they respond to them, and kind of leave the cycle a bit up to them. They want to know what they want to use, but they're not necessarily reprogramming cycles. And it's not everybody. Here's what it comes down to. The reason I bring it up is this. There are a lot of different methods from coach to coach, where most people probably think that we all kind of have this same methodology or do things the same way. And I'm learning that right now because of finally, working with, I've never worked with somebody before. So
did you assume then that, like, let me ask you this. So working with Justin now, did you assume that he was going to do things differently than he is with gear?
No, I think there's still a lot of parallels. And that was part of the reason that I went with him. But there are some things where I go, I wouldn't have done that. But then I laugh about it and I go, well, that's why I'm working with him. So there are a bunch of different avenues. It's, I've always said, to get to the, top of the hill or whatever else, there's just all these different roads. And the destination is the same. There's just different ways and different methodology to get there. He hasn't done, for the record, he hasn't done anything where I went, yeah, that's fucked up. And
yeah, of course.
Obviously, that's not, so it's cool. Even my wife has said, well, gosh, he wants you to do this. You're going to do that, right? What would I not do it for? What are you kidding? I'm not questioning it. It's really nice to not have to make those decisions. So I'm telling you, this is a stress-free ride right here. I'm riding for free.
I love that.
Can I add to that for a second? Because how annoying is it when you get, like I say, a new client and they're like, well, I wanted to go with you because I knew you'd think the exact same way I do, and you'd do the same things I would do. And it's like, okay, thank you, I guess. But like, save
your money.
Yeah. Like, why don't you prep yourself then? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, to me, like, I would, just like you said, Skip, I would go to a coach knowing or expecting to hopefully learn something, and not like I'm sitting here taking notes that I want to use to my own clients, but more like, hopefully the coach is going to see things that I can't see internally, because they have an outside in viewpoint, and they're going to see some things a little differently than I would, and hopefully get me to where I want to go a little faster, a little quicker.
Yeah. And I still say number one on the list when people ask me, it's easy. It's trust.
Yep.
And that is just so vitally, I've always preached it, but I've never been on the other end of it and had to literally go. Now, there are times where I go, I'm usually a lot leaner and sunk in right now. I'm also the type that drives myself into the ground.
Yep.
And digs such a hole that the ladder isn't big enough to get out of. So it's easy for me to justify that and go, oh, there's something I was doing, wrong. He's pulling me back, and he's got his pace, and it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, man.
It's reassuring.
And knowing you for so long, having seen you diet before, like, this to me is like this is the first time that it's different. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
This is the first time that it's different, and I think it's going to be to your advantage. I'll say this about the, adding compounds earlier on. If I were to say, is there anything that I'm against? Like, I would prefer not to. I generally don't like using orals at 16 weeks out. I feel like there's nothing an oral is going to do that I can't also achieve with an injectable. And my thought is, like, I want to try to keep stress lower. So I mean, if you really twisted my arm and you're like, man, I respond so good to Anadrol, and maybe the first 4 weeks of, like, maybe we're 20 weeks out. Let's say 20 weeks out, and we wanted to run some Anadrol for the first 4 weeks. Let's go for it. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But in general, I would never come to somebody and say, like, this is what I want you to do. We need to get on Anadrol at 16 weeks out. You know what I'm saying? But I like
do
that
something
idea.
Similar to that. Andrew was talking about that Tren, which honestly I never thought about before. And I when you've said that the first time, I thought, man, I've never even considered that. And it's a good idea. But I do something similar with, like Scott is saying, every now and then I'll throw in 4 or 5 weeks of Anadrol. People will call it a jump start.
Yeah.
Call it what you want, but it does. It's a ball rolling type of thing. Not always, but sometimes.
Would you guys agree that like the time to do that would be, let's say you're starting to prep at 20 weeks out, like weeks 20 to say 16 or something like that, versus weeks like 14 to like 10 or 8.
Yeah.
I think I thought you guys would agree. And the reason why is, what we're doing is already stressful enough, especially to the liver. And we don't want to stress the liver out and decrease our ability to recycle estrogen and burn fat and convert T4 to T3 that early in a prep when we know we still have 10, 12, 14 weeks to go. So I don't think what you said, Skip, 4 weeks of Anadrol or so, 20 weeks out. That's a great, that's a John Meadows thing. He was big on that.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was a big popular. We always did that with me, I feel like, for the majority of preps.
And I feel like, something I mentioned in one of the last couple episodes was that idea of the psychological get up and go. You know what I mean? Like, if you can really get somebody plugged in, I think that there's a benefit to maybe doing a little bit more than nothing, at 16, 20 weeks out. Maybe we don't really need to be hitting the hammer hard yet, but man, if it gets you feeling like I'm in the zone now, like I'm in my groove, then I think that's only going to benefit us for being able to make progress and all of that. And overall, having a good experience. And I think part of what we're talking about here is weighing out the risk to benefit. Like, is there a risk, like using an oral at 20 weeks out or 16 weeks? Is there a risk? Sure. There's a risk to taking an oral anytime or taking any steroid anytime, right? But we're weighing that out, and in our experience, it's not something that I think we it's not going to be detrimental. So,
right.
How about the second part of that?
On the same page with that.
How about the second part of that question about adding trenbolone to NPP?
I've done it, and I have no problem with it. I don't know that I don't make it a point to do. Typically, I switch them out.
Yeah.
I will run the NPP early, and then which is exactly what I'm doing. And I don't give away anything with my gear usually, but yeah, I'll pull the Tren, and I usually, I'll pull the NPP, and I usually pull it about a week prior to starting Tren because acetate kicks a lot quicker than the NPP. The NPP will kind of, I call it a self taper, call it what you want, but that's the label that I use, so that I don't kind of overlap the two any more than I have to. So I'll leave the NPP out for a week when I bring the Tren acetate in. And I've said before, I'll say again, I'm not a fan of any other Tren other than acetate. I think personally, I could do just fine with myself and my clients if there was never any like the supply of Tren Hex and anthate just all of a sudden disappeared tomorrow. Yeah, I'd have no problem with it.
I'd agree.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of mixing them either because and I'm not saying that that's a hard rule, but I've generally used one or the other. And I could say that when we talked about like our best cycle, that it was like test, EQ, NPP, my take on it is 16 weeks or maybe longer. The first half of it, NPP, the second half of it wouldn't be a bad idea to get some Tren in there. Maybe 8 weeks of test and 8 weeks of Tren after that. Yeah. I'm a fan. And it's nice to have something to go to. You know what I mean? If you're taking everything already, then what are you going to go to later? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
And he did have a comment asking about would it be more detrimental to his lipids, and having some experience. I can say yes, it was vastly more detrimental to my lipids when I did something like this maybe 10 or 12 years ago. It wasn't NPP, it was actually DECA, so I should be clear about that. But it was DECA, and I did throw Tren in, and I could not remember the doses to save my life. But, it was off season, and I was 10 or 12 years younger, so it was probably a fair amount of each. And I tell you what, I did my labs 6 weeks in, and it was enough to make me quit the cycle completely. So,
really?
And you were young, and you quit the cycle. That says something.
I was younger than I am today. I was younger than I
right.
was.
No, but that's
I was
what
probably
I'm saying.
30.
But when we're younger, we tend to take those risks a little bit more. So if you pulled the plug then versus now, that says something.
Well, thinking back about doing it, I actually did it because I wanted to see, what it did to my labs, running test, NPP, Tren, and there might have been probably EQ in there too, if I'm being honest. And let's say it probably topped out around, I would guess 2.5 grams a week, I would imagine, with no orals. Okay. And I remember my HDL, I've got these labs somewhere because I did a whole paper on it for Mountain Dog Diet showing this stuff. And it was like, I feel like my HDL,
9.
It sunk to I think it was sub teens. It was 9 or 10, like you said. And before the cycle, I was 50. Okay. So it was a drastic drop. But the cool thing is with the cholesterol program that I ran afterwards, I got my HDL back up to 52 within another 6 weeks. So
nice.
Yeah. The main point of the article was throwing the kitchen sink of lipid supplements at it and fixing it. And it worked. So.
Can I add something that I think, to us would be quite obvious, but may not be to the viewers? Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. There might be some who go, we're not that stupid. Okay, fair enough. But there are some people who may not understand this. And I'll just speak for myself. I'm far more concerned about a tanked HDL than I am running high LDL. Mm-hmm. I think so many people isolate and they pull those numbers out and look at them, separately. And that ratio, and also time period. Yep. If you're only tanked for a short amount of time, okay. You know what? You were smoking for a short amount of time. You were drinking a lot for a short amount of time. That stress on the body really isn't good. And essentially, these things are cumulative. So you don't want that. If you're tanked, you don't want your HDL tanked for long periods of time because that's just a really bad situation. But understand, if you don't know, as a viewer, that I think you should pay more attention to that ratio. So if you are running high, and I've had even just average people who aren't even in, bodybuilding, they'll be like, oh yeah, my doctor said my LDL is too high, it's got to come down. I'm like, your ratio's fine, your HDL is off the chart. Mm-hmm. Why are they even concerned about this? I don't even understand why. But I think a lot of doctors are that way too. Probably not the doctors we go to because we tend to look for more advanced, advanced knowledge or understanding. Try to get a knowledge base from a doctor that is a little bit geared toward what we're doing. Toward what we're doing versus the average person who's going to, get that, LDL is too high. No. It's the ratio.
All right, let's move on. We got a bunch of stuff. And you guys left us a bunch of great questions. If you want to have questions on the next show, then definitely comment below. And for all the Patreon people, of course, comment on Patreon. So I didn't even really read this completely. It came off DM. I happened to see it right as we we're getting ready to pull the show together. So this will be the first time I'm reading it. Hey, Scott, please keep my name anonymous along with my coach. I know that you know him. First time caller, long time listener. I've been working with Skip Hill for a long time. No, I'm kidding about
that. Well played. I like that.
Question for the next show. Preferably blood, sweat, and gear. My favorite trio from Think Big Bodybuilding. What is the average rate for a coach for the NPC level and the IFBB level? Is there a difference in your opinions? I seem to be going through a divorce from my former coach. It wasn't personal. I competed my show. Was satisfied with what we accomplished, winning an overall at my first competition. I came in peeled, polished, and walked away with the hardware. We were planning to do nationals, but life happened, things changed, and my body wasn't responding well enough to justify a possible poor showing. We decided to pull it. Bodybuilding being a passion of mine, it isn't something that I can put too many resources into. And at the same time, I needed to focus more on other aspects of my life. After just over 2 years together, I decided that I wanted to do an off season by myself to save the money. Needless to say, my coach wasn't happy with this decision. Talking to other athletes from this former coach's roster, I found that I was being charged a rate almost double of what most athletes were paying. Some of them IFBB pros. $400 a month was what I was paying my coach, which I thought was standard practice in the industry. I know good coaches are valuable, but knowing other athletes under his name were being charged at various rates made me feel cheated.
I only caught half of that because Rachel's doing dishes.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that. I was just waiting. I patiently waited.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, so there's a few things in there. Okay. From a coach's perspective, it could be, because I want to touch on this first, it could be that he was disappointed that, like, holy shit, we nailed it. You won, you took the overall, and was already kind of anticipating, expecting, okay, we're going to build from here. It was a great start, that type of thing. Understand that as a coach, that first prep is vitally important because there's so much to take away, not only for the client, but for the trainer for the future. It's harder to get, and this is where good coaches are, end up being good coaches. It's harder though to get it right and nail it the first time versus all the shows that come after that, because we gain so much knowledge of the peaking process, how you respond to things as the show gets closer. So it was probably like, oh crap, like we got it all figured out. Let's move forward. So it may not be just because you were going somewhere else because of money, I would like to think. But then there's other things in there that you're saying that, he was saying he was, the fees are kind of, I don't want to say negotiable, but they change from client to client. And I want to be careful with this because I don't know, who it is or anything else, but I'm going to say this because I feel this way. I think that's unethical. That's just I don't think it's very good business. And if you guys have, if you have something that you say, okay, well, what about this? Then I might be able to see it a different way. But on the surface, I think it's unethical because it does show and can show kind of a favoritism or something like, what do you mean? Like, I make more money, so you charge me more money? That type of thing. Yeah. I don't know.
Let me rebut that one.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
And I got a couple thoughts too.
Because what if you're a coach that rewards loyalty? Like, let's say you have someone that's been with you for 6 or 7 years, and they started out at, let's say, $200 a month, and you've gained acumen as a coach and more notoriety, and your client load has gone up, and now you're charging people current rates because you want to continue to reward the loyalty of those clients that have stuck with you for 5, 6, 7 years, and you're doing yourself a disservice by not increasing those rates as much as you possibly could have. But I think it shows loyalty both ways, I guess, in a sense. And I'm not saying that that's going to say. Yeah, I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's going on here because maybe it's not. But I just know, I do have. I'll be honest. I have some people that pay less than others because they've been with me for 7 years.
Yeah. I generally haven't raised when I raise prices, which doing this for a decade full time, I've raised prices over the years. And probably not as much as I should, honestly. But
all of us.
The people who are already working with me at a price, I've left their pricing as it is. And I figured, hey, they're a long-term person and I'm not going to raise the prices on them. The new people, though, it's still, the way I see it is it's still a very fair deal. So I guess if you were to talk to somebody I'm working with for the last 5 years, you might hear a different price from them. Yeah. Now, I don't know. I know that some coaches will, and I've heard this, will be like, I want this guy to come work with me, so I'm not going to charge. I'll make it like a real sweet deal. In fact, I've even heard some coaches giving gear and stuff to really good clients. You know what I mean? That's what I've heard too.
Yeah.
So I've heard of that kind of thing too. So I wonder if maybe it's a high level person like that, where they're getting a free ride out of it or something.
There's some coaches out there that pay their athletes to work with them. And we're talking top level Olympia people that because they know the trade-off is they're going to get hundreds of inquiries because they have that person.
They pay?
They pay.
I wouldn't do that.
Pay.
Skip, your mic's been off. He didn't hear me, I guess.
Skip, we can't hear you.
Let's just watch him. Let's just watch him. We'll just keep watching him. For the audio listeners, we're watching Skip talk, but we can't hear him. He was like having full on.
Kind of starting to figure it out.
He's figuring it out now. Now he looks very confused. He's got a button to hit or something.
You know.
There we go.
Damn, that's my mic dropped down on my boom, and it hit. That's odd. Of all the things it could hit, it muted my mic. Awesome. Okay.
What was your point?
My point was this. Number one, I agree with you guys because I grandfather clients as well. If they stay with me, their rates don't change. To me, I don't think that's fair. New clients different as you go up in price. Then obviously, so I agree with you there. I'm glad you guys made that point. As far as and I'll say this: traders can do whatever they want to. It's their business. It's their time. You can do whatever you want, but you have to be okay with other people thinking that it might be questionable. Like a client, like this guy is doing now, and he's questioning. Yeah, I don't know if that's fair.
We got Ty
I guess I would question.
Ty in the chat is one of my clients. He says, I'd like my coach to pay me to get coached by him. We can talk about the details later. Thanks, coach.
Are you a perennial Olympian, Ty?
He's close. He's close.
Okay, we're getting there. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors, you know. I mean, all right, let's say this. You got a client that says, hey, I'm going to pay you for a full year cash up front. Are they paying the same monthly rate than someone who's paying monthly?
True. Good point.
You know what I'm saying?
That's true too. Point. Yeah.
So if someone were to talk to some of those people that we all have, they'd be like, oh, I'm only paying X a month, or I'm paying X a month. And they're like, wait a minute, I'm paying like 20% more. It's like, well, this person delivers cash in hand on the first of the year and it's covered them for the next 12 months. So I mean, it's like any business, right? I mean, I went and dropped a lawnmower off to this guy today, and he's like, hey, I only take cash. If you want to pay card, I can do it, but I'm going to charge you 20% more. I'm like, cash it is.
Right. No, good points.
You know? So, but I would ask this guy, were you happy with the service? Because $400 isn't like a ridiculous amount. That's pretty, that's standard for the industry right now. But I would ask him, do you feel like you got your money's worth? And it sounds like you won your show, you won the overall. You have some prospects on a national level, and I guess the real issue is maybe the coach kind of started to get a little upset the fact that you're leaving them because, as Skip pointed out, when we have a really great season with someone, we're thinking about the future. Like, okay, we're going to get you in a great off season, we're going to make these improvements, and then we're going to go to the national level and we're going to get a pro card, and then we're going to go to the pro stage. So they're thinking like long term. So maybe it just warrants a conversation with the coach, like, hey, money's tight right now. I really want to stay with you. Maybe, because I do this with some people, maybe every other week check-ins instead of weekly, because off-season isn't
off-season, you could get away with that.
You could totally get away with that, and you could maintain a great relationship, and everybody would be happy, So I would just have a conversation with your coach, and the thing is like, a lot of times people go into every single situation like it's got to be confrontational and like they got to win something out of it. And I think you got to look at the big picture as like, okay, this coach seemingly has served you well, and they probably have been making good moves for you. You guys work well together, good dialogue, good communication, all that stuff. So bring all that stuff up and paint that picture to him too. And I think you guys can come up with something that's going to be mutually beneficial and agreeable for both of you.
Yeah. I think
can we agree that fee is kind of, I consider that a pretty, I don't know if it's average, but I'm not surprised by that fee. I don't consider it too low. I don't consider it ridiculously high. So,
I just realized I need to raise my prices like double, basically, if not more. That's what I got to do here today.
You're going to get a lot of inquiries right now. They're like, I got to hit him before he raises.
Here's the thing, though,
too late, guys. Too late.
What I'm finding is it's a lot of the younger, newer coaches that are charging some exorbitant amounts.
Are they?
Like $600 a month, $650 a month. I'm hearing some of these numbers, and I'm like, that person's got 4 people on their roster, like, and they've never brought us someone into a pro show or into a national level show, like, you know what I mean? So, and I think a lot of the big part of that is these coaches, all the coaches now are spending a lot of money on education, and they're taking courses from other coaches, which great, but I think there's it's a double-edged sword, right? Because sometimes people lose sight of the actual coaching. And they're always trying to run a protocol, or they're always trying to like a gut protocol or a functional health this or whatever it might be. And those things are necessary. Don't get me wrong, but looking at clients as always needing to fix something or always needing some type of protocol.
Yeah.
And the real experience you're going to get is the in the trenches, checking people in, making the changes week after week, doing the actual work of coaching.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going to get a lot more out of that, I think.
Nope, I completely agree.
All right. I know we had a bunch of stuff from Patreon. I'm going to see what we had in there. If I can scroll over here. Yes, here's some Patreon. What do you guys see on EGF? Rachel's cooking. She's in prep. So we can't say anything, Andrew. She's in prep. One of the common questions we get asked by you guys is, what would you do differently with your bodybuilding if you could go back in time? Given all the experience and education I have today, there's a number of things that I would have done differently. One of them is that I would have started using collagen sooner. Collagen is one of the few supplements that will actually rebuild connective tissue. It took me tearing my supraspinatus in 2021 to get with the program. I use True Nutrition's hydrolyzed beef collagen. I get the unflavored version. I pay for it myself, just like you guys do. I use 20 grams a day, mix it into my coffee. It's totally unflavored. You don't even taste it. Plus, I use 10 grams of their micronized creatine. Creatine has been shown to improve brain health, especially for the aging brain. I need that. And of course, we've always known about the muscle building effects. So this is my morning routine every day, and I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. Use our code THINK for savings. Plus, it's the only way for them to know that this advertising is being heard. Otherwise, they just think you're some random dude that clicked on an ad.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
EGFR, Skip. Where do you see EGFR change on a blast?
We're talking about blasting gear, right? Not blasting, not just blasting like, as far as,
what kind of blast is there? Yeah.
Training. I just didn't know if you meant like, if you were going to, I don't know.
If it's our audience, Skip, you can assume it's gear. If
they're
talking about a cruise,
just gear, it's blood and sweat too.
If they're talking about a cruise, they're not going on a boat.
I think I asked that question because sometimes I will assume that it's one thing when I talk to a client. Then we have a back and forth 3 times before I figure out we're talking about 2 different things. Anyway, here's what I'll see, and maybe you guys have seen this too. I'll see the basic EGFR go down that's formulated off the bun and the creatinine, but not the cystatin C. So ultimately, if you have problems with that, I call it the very basic EGFR, and it runs a little low, then you got to get the other test to really kind of see where it's at. But typically with the rudimentary EGFR, the basic, it'll come down sometimes. But again, blast is relative. Some people tolerate things better than others. It just depends. It certainly can. I mean, the more gear you take, the more you may take a hit. The more that it's all that much more important to be, hydrated and that your nutrition is on and everything else. So there's a lot of factors.
Hydration and blood pressure. Certainly, make sure your blood pressure is always under control when you're blasting.
And there's always, are you training much harder when you're blasting a cycle?
I'm sorry, guys. I feel like every freaking possible sound is coming through. Like we got the helicopters flying over my head.
We turned your mic up too. I think we turned your mic up, and that's
it's
probably
all I can hear today is like all sorts of external noises.
You know what? Maybe try turning it back down. I'll edit the rest though. It'll be good. It'll be good.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Let me see what else we have here because I know we had a bunch of stuff. All right. So still from Patreon, George says 4 weeks, and this is, he actually posted this 2 weeks ago. So 6 weeks into my first cycle, coming from a 200 milligram per week test base, running 350 test and 300 Primo, and E2 was around 45 to 117. It's like a huge.
Wait, what?
It's like E2
big window.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I should blow this up. It's like it went from 42 to 117. That makes more sense. Yes. Is it even possible to have this type of estrogen rise with real Primo? And once again, that's 350 test, 300 Primo.
Sure. Absolutely. It's possible. I mean, first off, I would make sure it is real Primo. Like, have you seen like a Janishik report? Have you, but not every single person is going to have clear cut, estrogen suppressing effects with Primable, or it's the same reason, or same reasoning why like some people might need, say, 25 milligrams of aromacin versus some guys need 6.25 with very similar drug levels as the base of their cycle. You know, some people convert more. They aromatize faster.
I agree with that, but would we, all three of us, not see those numbers and go, that's a little odd? You know, it might stand out and make us go, I know I would.
What I would do is I'd say, hey, call this guy, get this Primo, and then let's retest it and make sure it's you reacting to Primo, or make sure that the Primo you are using is real, basically.
He said he ordered, so there's another part too. He said, ordered and waiting on a test kit from Royd Test. Are these tests reliable? I'm personally going to say that I've seen flaws with it.
Yeah, me too. I would save money off the Royd kit, and I would actually just pay the $120 and send it into Janoschik and get it tested.
I'm emailing him to see if he'll come on Drugs and Stuff podcast.
Get him on with us.
Well, we had a thing going already on Drugs and Stuff. So
I gave him money. I paid for multiple.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, we had a thing going there, and yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, though, there's a lot of side conversation there with some listeners that don't believe that there's any fake gear out there at all anymore. So by that standard, 95% of gear is real unless he got the 5%. That's what I heard online today. 95% of all UGL gear is 100% legit. 95% of the time it's 100%. I'd say 80.
Yeah, I would say 85 is because everyone realizes they can just test this stuff now. Like if you go on the Janoschik site, there's thousands and like people are sending stuff in every day. That guy must be making a fortune right now with his testing business because this was not even a thing 10 years ago. Like we just prayed and hoped that what we were getting was real. We knew the test was real, but we just hoped that, and we knew the Tren was real because, you know, the color of the bottle and you know, but we hoped that the Primo, we hoped the test prop was real. EQ we could probably usually trust. Anavar was a big one that was faked quite often, you know. What are the other ones? But yeah, it's a different ball. It's a different landscape today, you know. It's funny, like, excuse me. I explained this because, you know, the world we live in today is so fast moving. Like, you know, people can DM a guy, put an order in, pay with some electronic means, and have their stuff 2 to 3 days later. If it's not there 2 to 3 days later, they're texting their coach like, yo, the guy you sent me, I think he burned me. And it's like, bro, this isn't Amazon Prime. Like you're buying illegal substances off the internet. Okay. Like the fact that you're even getting it is amazing. Okay. Because I mean, Skip knows when we first started, you hope that the guy you sent money to cash, by the way, the cash through the mail to was honest and had morals and would actually send you what you ordered. And
and there was no tracking, and you waited literally sometimes 2 months.
2 months.
There would be 2 months. You would
guess
wait.
what?
And
sometimes Western Union would call you and ask you why you sending money to this country.
That too.
Like,
and 1 out of every 5, you lost your money. 1 out of every 5 turned out to be a bum deal. So. We should all be very appreciative with the world that we have. We've got a million providers now, and
I was talking to Latz about kind of the climate today, and he said, "Oh yeah, there's still plenty of fake stuff out there," and he said sometimes it's not even the fault of the source. He said a lot of these guys, you know, a lot of people are testing, but there's a lot of companies that aren't testing too. There's over on PM, you know, there's sources that Latz would trust, sources that he says, hey, we don't see testing on them. Guys say, yeah, I got swole off of it, but you know, what does that really mean? And he said that recently there was some big shutdowns that happened over in China. They basically closed up a lot of the mom and pops. They went over there and they couldn't do like their checks and balances because they didn't even know where like a lot of these companies were operating from. So they just went town to town to all these little mom and pop peptide and hormone producers and shut them down. And even some of the, like, I don't want to mention the names, I can tell you guys off the air, some big companies ended up getting burned in this process. Companies that did test their stuff and they found out, like companies that are super respectable, like no hormone present, and they caught it. But, you know, there's going to be other people that get that stuff that don't catch it, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, what was the question? E2? Is what? Yeah, 117 Skip. You were saying you're not really that concerned anyway.
Well, I mean, it depends what the ratio is of test to estrogen, but I'm going to be concerned if that estrogen level goes up when someone starts Primo, especially if it's roughly 50-50 for the test.
Oh yeah, that's what you were saying.
350 test to 300
wait.
Primo, I think is what he said.
I'm
right?
sorry.
Yeah.
What was he using before? Did he mention that?
He was on 200 test like as a base. That was like his TRT.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then he went to 300 tests, 350 tests,
350 test and 300 Primo.
Oh, you're just taking more tests.
I mean, it kind of sounds.
You're taking
that
650 mgs a test. Yeah, I'm sorry.
that
I
could be.
totally didn't miss the part that he was running 200 and had it and tested at 45. Yeah. That blew over my head. So I'm sorry. I would say
very possible.
You're running test and test probably.
Yeah, I could see that.
And with that being said, Primobolan was the main compound that people are having a hard time getting right now. That was the main one. Everything I've been hearing from sources was no Primo for a while. So if you have a good source, buy all their bottles and tell your clients.
Dave talked to somebody about that overseas, and I guess they were having issues with Primo, and there were issues with testanethate too. They had this stuff that was causing major issues, and so they basically shut down the production, is what this company told him.
So basically, they've been pumping out a load of shit Primo to the point where it's putting people in the hospital.
Oh, like bad Primo.
Yeah. Massive inflammation, massive swellings. A couple of people that were suspected with sepsis. It came to light with one lab. They've pulled everything. I think a few of us are trying to trade through it. There does seem to be difficulty getting Primo, but it does seem to be still available. I know one lab that's gone to an Indian supplier.
Until they get that sorted out. And some places just like stopped altogether.
Yeah.
Here's an irony for you. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Primo. Got a bunch of it. Because I don't use it. So yeah, okay. There's a shortage. I got a bunch of it. Don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm gonna get hit up.
Skip saying 3 a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. What about this one? Thoughts on donating plasma and impacting your recovery and your gains?
I mean, all right.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I'll be honest. I don't like it. For people who may not know, again, I don't know what people know, so don't beat me up, viewers. But the plasma is where everything's carried. Okay. All your gear, when you give plasma, giving up all your gear. At least not all of it. You're not giving up all of your plasma, but you get my point. People say, "Oh, it's in the blood." Yeah, it's in the plasma. So I always laughed when I did double red because I'm like, you giving me back my same plasma, or is it somebody else's plasma? Because if you take the blood out and you give me back my plasma, I don't lose any gear that way. Obviously, I don't tell them that because that would disqualify me from giving blood.
Right? Yeah, you don't mention that part, right?
No, I screwed myself with bond fees back in Colorado. That was years ago, where they blacklisted me.
Oh,
because
really?
like a dumbass, I got to talking too much.
Yeah, you did.
Imagine that. While I'm sitting there squeezing the ball, I'm like, oh yeah, I give blood because my doctor wanted me to bring my numbers down. She's like, what? So she went and talked to somebody else. And they went and talked to somebody else. They came back, stopped the blood donation.
They pulled that right out of your arm, huh?
Yeah, yanked it right out and said, you need a script for that. And we can't, and then literally put me on the list. And the only blood donation in all of Colorado was bond fees at that time. So I couldn't give blood. I had to hang my arm. I remember there was a joke about hanging my arm over the deck.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Bloodletting into the coffee can on the lower deck. I mean, obviously I didn't do that, but it made for a really good story that apparently stuck with people for a while.
I never forgot about that.
For
the coffee can.
Yeah. Just let it just blow. Just blow out into the wind and try to hit the coffee can with it.
You know what? I never once donated blood. Never once have I donated,
really?
But I did a lot of therapeutic phlebotomy. So,
okay.
I mean, same difference.
Yeah.
Although I will say that they had the vacuum bags for a long time, and then they got these vacuum bottles. And the nurse knew I was kind of queasy about IV needles. I can do IM shots all day. IV needles, I'm not a big fan of. And so she thought maybe like I don't want to see the blood. And one time she like tried to put it behind her back so that like I didn't look at it, and she dropped it. Ooh. And I literally, oh my God, you don't know what like.
I do.
Unaliving scene smells like until you've been in a room with a pint of blood. Just whoa, the iron just hit everybody in the room. You know.
A girl got me when I went to the hospital one time for something, and they hooked me up, and I'm talking sprayed like everywhere. Like the floor looked like somebody had a knife wound, and it was deep. Yeah, all over the floor. Like they had to bring a mop bucket, and like and like they were like, "Are you okay? Are you okay to watch this? Do you want us?" I'm like, "I don't care. Like it's fine." You know, I've never been queasy.
This is a straight 500 mils. Just
it looked like 500 mils.
In my case, it was like already kind of like starting to coagulate in the bottle. So there's like a big clump in the middle. It was so gross. It was.
My story isn't as good. I pricked my finger the other day checking my blood sugar. Yeah. Squeeze it and it hit me in the face.
Did it really?
And I didn't know that's what it was. And I was like, I felt it on my nose. So I checked my nose. I thought I had a nosebleed. So I go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, I got a nosebleed. And it's literally like running down my finger. I'm like, I don't have a nosebleed. It shot out of my finger.
Holy crap.
And hit me on the nose, right below my nose.
Check that BP.
I feel like
no kidding, right?
Yeah. We kind of covered this already because we talked about Anadrol to kickstart a cut. But what about thoughts on Anadrol just during a cut, period? It's the only oral I have and just want the experience. I mean, how could you do Anadrol if I don't know what else he's got, but let's just say it's like, I don't know, test
do it
and
like
max.
This.
For the audio listener, Skip just
taking
a pill.
Right. Like what was he doing? Yeah. What did Skip do? It's so funny.
I would say if you're gonna do it, make sure you're ahead in terms of conditioning, so that you don't get freaked out when the scale jumps 5 pounds and
or your coach.
Don't make sure you tell your coach that you're doing it and that you're on the same page for one thing. Right. But because you will see, weight will obviously be stagnant or increase several pounds, and you'll have a great week of training for sure.
Oh yeah.
And that's why you would want to do it.
Appetite control.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you would want to do it. Is A, appetite control, and B, just having another great training week and kind of reinvigorate a little bit. But it's not something I would always do. It's not something I would. It's not the oral I'm going to when we're 6 weeks out. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't even think he was doing a show. I think he was just like non-competitors, just getting
even better
all day. Yeah,
that's the best scenario. Then if you're like beach lean and you throw an Anadrol for 2 weeks, you're gonna feel like $1 million and you're gonna look stacked. So I would absolutely do it in that scenario.
100%.
We'll have to come back to this one in some way. One of our Stefan said, "Love the episode, guys. Can you do another contest special episode, please? It's been a minute since the last one." I don't know, contest prep special. Should we do that soon?
Maybe next episode.
Yeah, we do a contest prep special. Do you guys see any muscle loss with Retatrutide due to glucagon?
No.
I have not personally run it, but I have had plenty of clients on it, and none of them have lost muscle. I would say this. I felt like I saw a little bit of muscle loss, or at least a flattening effect with tirzepatide. And I don't know. I think you ran it too, Scott. You might have something to say about that. But Reta, no one's looking flat. No one's. If anything, it's really just like, hey, my appetite's great. I don't have an appetite, or I don't have this undying hunger.
I'm finding, and I told Skip about my plan, which my plan worked, man. So I don't know if you'd call it a skip load or a crap load, but basically I couldn't get enough food in, Andrew. And I talked about this on my Ask Me Anything. I had this French toast for a cheat meal, 2 cheat meals back, my load day, and basically because I'm getting like very depleted, dieting very hard. Like look at the scale before I eat this meal, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it's this low. And even Victoria's been like, yeah, you look smaller. And she won't say that kind of stuff to me because she knows it'll get in my head.
Mean.
You know what I mean? Like she's very careful. So she says that to me. She's like, you need to eat. You know what I mean? So I eat this French toast. It was so sweet. And there's all these carbs. I felt sick. I couldn't handle it, man. I thought I was going to barf. So this week I ended up having a Culver's double burger with a fries. And then I let it chill for a little while. And then a little while later I was hungry again. And I got this thin crust frozen pizza one that I like, and it's like 110 carbs. And over the next hour or so, I ate that pizza, and I had 3 donuts, and we had a half a chocolate bar. I ate like 300 carbs basically, and I was able to get it in, and I was up like a half a pound the next day. I've been feeling good this week, and training's going great now versus before. I just felt like I didn't even really want to train because I was so depleted feeling. So I would say that with how hard I was dieting, if I were taking more Retatrutide, like if you didn't do it right, then I could see you losing muscle. I think you know what I'm saying?
It's dose dependent too. Absolutely.
Yeah. But the way we're talking about using it smaller doses, it's in a cycle, we're also eating a bodybuilder diet.
Let me also just add another point, because Skip had kind of mentioned one of the main reasons why he hired Justin was to give the reins over to someone else and to not worry about his own prep and to not drive himself into the ground. And I do think that coaches that work with other athletes to get them into great condition, we kind of like beat ourselves up even worse. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, we're these tough guys or anything, but like, I know for me, whenever I prep myself, it was always just keep pushing harder, keep getting depleted, keep getting depleted. Oh, hold off another 2 days for a refeed. Hold off.
Of course.
And I think it's just our mindset of – so where I'm going with that is you would probably be getting that way even without the Reta, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
With how you're locked in right now.
That's a good point.
Because you're locked in right now and you're like conditioned over everything. I'm getting peeled this summer. So
well, this is our business. How we look and how we respond to getting lean, that's people are paying attention. Yeah, it's not going to look very good if Skip isn't in condition when he stands on stage. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or if it's mediocre. Yeah. So there's that. And I've said before, I have mediocre genetics, but I have to be in condition because there's a benchmark there. There's an expectation. Even if there weren't for other people or my clients, there most certainly is for me.
Yeah, sure.
I have to be able to come off the stage and go, okay, I might have gotten beaten, but my conditioning was still crazy.
Yeah. I like that. All right. Advice on tapering off of Clen, T3, and Letrozole in between some shows. Each show is 6 weeks apart. How would you advise tapering down to reset, recover receptors before starting up again, and any other damage control tactics?
Can I just say off the bat real quick, and then you guys can take over if you want. 6 weeks between shows is rough.
Think so?
Give me a couple. Give me 3. Once you get past that 4 or 5 week mark, I don't like the 4 to 5 to like 7 or 8.
I do.
At least if you get past the 8, you can kind of reset. You can pull back a little bit on the diet. You can pull back on the gear without really having to, I don't want to say micromanage, but 6 weeks is not a lot of time to come down too much before going back up, depending on, what it is. Clen, no big deal. T3, probably not a big, but you're getting into orals, you're getting into the other things that you just, and you can pull back. Obviously, we're going to pull back on the orals, but I would rather, and I try to get my clients to do 2 to 3 weeks apart if I can, or more than 8.
Maybe he's thinking, maybe it's a qualifier and then national show, which is quite typical, because, I think 3 times I had Nate Spear do 12 weeks in between a qualifier and then, or a national show and then another national show.
Let me add that it's important if you have to peak for them versus, if you're using Nate as an example, if he had to qualify, he's probably going to come away with that qualification at, 85, 90% without breaking, prep. A lot of guys like that can just run through and they can kind of.
I would actually argue the other way, though.
The peak.
I would argue the other way that if there's, say, 10, 12 weeks in between shows, you can absolutely peak for both of them, knowing that you have a good amount of time. You know what I'm saying? But, and
that's what I was basing my time frame on, was actually peaking. Between those shows. A couple weeks, you can peak, go back just a little bit, or just kind of ride it for those few weeks. But to peak at 100%, or want to peak at 100% and then peak at 100% again, give me more than 6.
Well, okay, what would you guys
2
say?
Weeks. 2 weeks, the water hasn't even changed a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of times you look so much better at the second show a couple weeks later.
You could almost kind of hold that and then just do minor changes going in. But like 6 weeks, you can't. You're going all the way back to the start.
2 weeks is perfect for a qualifier in the national show, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But to answer his question, I mean, just pull the Clen out completely. You don't need to taper off it. Just stop taking it.
Sure.
If you're in shape, you probably don't even need it anymore. Maybe add it back in 2 to 3 weeks out from the next show. With really, in my opinion, all you're really going to taper is probably your orals. You're going to pull probably like halo testing if you're using it out. You might pull the Winstrol out. And if we're talking 6 weeks, what I would do in this situation is I would quit the orals cold turkey for 2 weeks and probably start adding them back in at 4 weeks out, maybe 3. And I think like we're all agreeing that it's easier to hold a look even when you pull the orals out than it is to like get the look when you're on the come up. So you could probably push it to 3 weeks out, add all your orals back in then, and you're going to be completely fine. In terms of like letrozole, which I don't really use letrozole. But in terms of aromatase inhibition, I don't know if I would change anything because you're probably not going to change your base drugs. You're probably not changing your testosterone. You're probably not changing your, if you're using Masteron or Primo or some of the other compounds, you're probably not changing those much. Maybe you're going to run off the Tren for 2 weeks, give yourself a little bit of break, get some nice, good sleep for a couple weeks. And then the last one, T3, I probably wouldn't change T3 at all unless you're kind of treating it like you're reversing into this next show and you're finding that your metabolism just taking off. You can start pulling the T3, you're feeding up calories, and your body's just kind of like riding this snowball momentum. Yeah, like the best scenario, really, you know?
I wonder with that letrozole, if he's running letro, like he's really crushing estrogen, I'm guessing, you know, is that his game plan? Is he thinking like, I need to crush my estrogen into the show and then I need to do it again in 6 weeks? Because I don't think any of the three of us would be like, hey, we got to add letro in, you know, commonly, I think, going into a show.
It's funny.
I don't really crush estrogen like I used to, I guess.
It's funny. I hear more female bikini coaches crushing estrogen than males in bodybuilding.
Really?
I'm talking, there's a very, very well-known coach, one of the top bikini coaches, pro cards, you know, 3 or 4 every national show. People in the Olympia, whatever. Runs Aromacin, Adex, and Letrozole, all 3 together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know this firsthand from a girl who, when we were at Universe one year, I wasn't coaching her, obviously. I don't even remember her name. She just happened to be in my room, sitting on the couch, and that sounded weird. But anyway.
Yes, it did. Yeah. It actually did.
But, you go to shows and you meet people and you go into someone's room to watch him pose and he's got a girlfriend or someone that he's kind of seen, whatever. And this girl couldn't even get off the couch to go check in for her show. She skipped the show because her estrogen was so zapped. She just couldn't. She was like mummified. She was just like, I can't move right now. And I'm like, do you think you need medical attention? She's like, no, I just want to rest. I don't think I'm going to do the show. I don't feel good. Yeah, it was bad.
I will say that, excuse me, based on some information that I got last year from a top, not directly from him, from a top prep guy who crushes estrogen and is known to crush estrogen, I thought, you know what? I'm going to play. Let's just see. I've never just killed an ant with a grenade before. Okay. So I'm going to do this. Higher Arimidex than I've ever run, and then for about 2.5 weeks, put Letrozole on top of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I didn't feel very good.
No.
But I will tell you this.
Yeah.
The look, I was like, well, this is why he does it. Like, it was markedly improved.
Really? I've seen there to be benefit, but to a degree.
It's a mixed bag.
I'm surprised you hadn't done it in the past because that's how I came up. It was crushing estrogen. I may have,
but not to this. Okay. Like literally killing an ant with a grenade. I mean, it was so overkill. I want to give just an idea. I want to say it was 1.5 mg a day.
Okay.
And about 2 or 2.5, I'd have to check the dose of the Letrozole a day.
A day.
And understand, that the testosterone dose, I'm typically in the 1,200. I might have been at 1,400, probably 1,400 because I'm a little bit lower this year. So probably 1,400. I mean, clearly crush. And you have your Masterons, and I didn't have Primo and stuff like that, but because I hate it. But it clearly was just crushing it. I mean, joints didn't feel great. They honestly, I thought they'd feel horrible. Like I would notice this, oh my gosh, like I'm just creaky. It wasn't horrible, but they just didn't feel very good. Sex drive.
Zero.
I'm in West Palm. My sex drive was like in Seattle.
Yeah.
It was just not even.
It's a good way to put it.
I felt like
it
just my
wouldn't.
skin
That's a long
being
way away
touched,
from West Palm.
Even the thought of my skin being touched on like that much AI just like made me want to like, oh, get away from me. You know what I mean?
Well, and imagine. I mean, if I'd have pulled bloods, I'd have probably been, HDL of -30.
Right.
I mean, I don't even know. I wouldn't have wanted to see my bloods at that time, if I'm being honest. Now, it wasn't for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because it was toward, and I'm gonna put this out there. It was as I was digging my biggest hole.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it contributed to it or if it, whether it was correlative or causative. But even pulling it back, it didn't fix the situation. So I think it was just correlative. I don't think it caused it, but nonetheless, it was during that time period. But I tell you, the look alone was like, and it was part of the I'm like, just keep grinding because this look is damn.
Well, let's hope that you can say that again about your look coming up here.
Yeah, without killing an ant with a grenade.
Or
right?
if you do, it is what it is. But tell us about it then, if you did.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I think it
we
goes
used to
both
always
ways, though.
just smash it.
I think it
both ways?
goes, yeah. Not like Skip, but like it goes both ways.
That was good.
We did say you're in
That
West
was
Palm.
good.
Just saying. No, but in all seriousness, I've seen like when people do crush or estrogen, when it comes to filling out, it just doesn't happen because you do need estrogen for glycogen synthase activity. And also like when people do this like earlier on in a prep and they really crush it, it's like fat loss kind of just comes to a stall, like a standstill. So like they're hard and like a dry skin look, but like they're just not making improvements on those little areas that just need to get thinner and thinner and thinner. But I have seen great cases too. So to like what Skip's talking about. So I think it's one of those things that's worth experimenting once. And if you're someone that can deal with 2 to 3 weeks of feeling like absolute death, then, go for it.
So, okay.
And
So
I
back to
thought
this
it
guy
would
then.
get in the way.
Yeah.
Back
But
to
it
this
didn't.
guy then. So let's say that is what he's doing. He's leveling his estrogen going into this show. And he had 6 weeks before the next one.
Then
He
pull
obviously doesn't want to ride that out for 6 weeks. What are we going to do to let that come back up and then drop it again?
Pull the electro and go to something like Aromacin for, maybe a 25 mgs every other day for the next 3 to 4 weeks and then add the electro back in is what I would do.
Yep.
Yeah. I go with that.
It is one of those things too, though. It's like once you've seen yourself look a certain way, taking certain things, it's hard to tell someone or for someone to just be like, yeah, I don't want to stop looking like this. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
like
and you have to question any type of rebound too. Like, how bad are you going to rebound?
Mm-hmm.
So-
coming, it could be not great.
Well, then, I mean, I think it's got to be a mature client in terms of, with food and someone who isn't doing their first or second show, someone who's been through the process to where food is just fuel to, to make an analogy out of it. But that, you know what I'm saying? Like, as you guys, got later on in your careers, did you even really think about the post-show meals or the food after the show?
Exactly.
It was like, I just want water and maybe a little bit of fruit.
Yeah, I
And
want to
then
sleep.
fruit,
I'm
man.
exhausted.
Yeah, I want to sleep, and then I want to get back to some good training sessions again in like a week or so. And
I want to wake up tomorrow and have sex.
yeah, I
Maybe I'll
want
actually
to.
want to have.
You want to want to.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if Skip's going to want to answer this question, but we will throw it out to him because it was asked by Jason Frost on YouTube. He says, Skip, what show are you doing? Not sure when this was filmed, but I'm doing St. Pete and Masters Nationals. Currently 12 and 15 weeks out. Would love to meet you.
Yeah, I messaged him. I told him I'd see him in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
He saw me to say hi.
Okay.
Yeah, Masters Nationals, and if for some reason, things are going great and it looks, maybe you should come back in 5 weeks. I might have a hotel reservation at the exact same venue and flights back to Pittsburgh 5 weeks later. I also
North American
might
seats?
have Pittsburgh Pirates seats right behind the dugout. for the first show, but not for the second yet. I don't want to make too many plans for the second yet.
Yeah, maybe you're not going to be there. You know what I mean?
No, the plan is to not be there.
Right.
For
That's
sure.
what I'm saying. Don't buy tickets. You know. Okay. What do you guys think about using EQ in contest prep? 100 milligrams a test with 750 EQ.
Oh, okay.
100 milligrams.
We're going there, huh?
We're going there.
Yeah.
I have never heard of.
I'm not going there. I'm not doing that personally.
I have never heard of a
he's going there.
testosterone level so low, and an EQ level. Not that it's so high, but I guess the ratio of testosterone.
Yeah.
I can't really speak on it. I've never had anyone do it. Here's what I think. I think you might look a little flat. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Let's go another way. Do you guys do you pull testosterone typically going into shows for yourself and for others, or are you ride your testosterone maybe lower it a little bit going into the last couple weeks?
I generally keep the test in. If everything's looking good, I don't want to change that personally, you know.
Okay.
If anything, I might not take the EQ because it's such a long ester. It'll just kind of ride for those last couple weeks, and it's less volume.
Well, like, are you gonna pull the EQ like 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I would pull that before I would pull the testosterone.
Yeah,
I've often pulled EQ as I'm getting into like more volume of oil, just because I'm like, is this really giving me what I need, or am I better off with the mast and the Tren? You know,
right. The only thing is EQ these days. I mean, is anybody getting it less than 300 meg, and it's usually 400 meg, so it's not very voluminous. But I get what you're saying. And it depends on how you respond. And
I'm an old head, Skip. I'm an old head.
Yeah,
that was back in my day.
Well, and it depends on the compound, because, like, as an example, I do prefer more Prop as it gets closer, because I get inflammation from it. Remember, I was born with very, very narrow shoulder clavicles. So the more localized inflammation I get from those shots in my shoulders, they benefit me greatly. So more Prop, more irritation going into my delts. Delts round out quite a bit better than putting things in there that don't inflame them.
Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for being here with us. Leave us questions for the next show. We've got more blood, sweat, and gear coming your way. So definitely, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and share with us your thoughts on estrogen. Have you crushed estrogen? And was it a good thing for you? I bet you that if you're a bodybuilder and you're like over 40 and you're like a competitor over 40, you've done it at least a handful of times. So tell us whether you guys like to crush estrogen or not. And of course, reach out to Skip over at teamskip.com and Andrew over at bodyberry.com. Hit me up at mcnallydiets@gmail.com. And of course, thank you to TrueNutrition.com for supporting our programming. They're the first advertiser that had ever worked with us for all the crazy titles that we put out on this show sometimes. I'm grateful that they're still around. Use our code THINK over there, and thank you to supplementsource.ca for Canadians. Next episode, we've got your insane set of the week, guys, and another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. We'll see you soon.